Time for a new decade of Stephen King movies and adaptations as we reach the noughts. Here are 19 reasons to watch Hearts in Atlantis. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Dave Musson, at Dave Musson on Instagram, and this is the place where I talk to you about all things Stephen King. Do check out the links in the description for links to my Stephen King quiz book, to my fiction, to the podcast that I've done for this channel, and a bunch of other things as well. But more than anything, thank you so much for coming here, checking out this video. I hope you enjoy it, and let's see what we get into this time. So as you know from the intro, this video is covering the 2001 Scott Hicks directed adaptation Hearts in Atlantis, which is a loose adaptation of the novella Low Men in Yellow Coats, which was collected in the 1999 book Hearts in Atlantis. It stars Anthony Hopkins, a young Anton Yelchin. It's very warm, very fuzzy, very steeped in nostalgia, but is it actually any good? That's what I'm going to try and establish across these 19 reasons. Now, if you're worried about potential spoilers, don't be. There will be some reasons that might ruin a first time watch, but I will hide them behind a spoiler alert so you can bail if you need to. Simply check out the timestamp in the description to just skip ahead to the outro, and you can dodge those bits that might ruin a first time watch. And if you're trying to track down this movie to watch it, it's not available on any streamers, but you can buy it or rent it on a bunch of places, including right here on YouTube. And of course, if you want to see my 19 reasons to read the book Hearts in Atlantis, then that video is right here on my channel. Just search around for it, or if the link shows up there, click it there and you'll find it. Happy days. Okay, enough introduction. Here are 19 reasons to watch Hearts in Atlantis. So what's my takeaway, standout headline reason to go and watch Hearts in Atlantis then? Well, it's really about the feeling of this, the vibe of this. This is a seriously cozy film to watch, steeped in nostalgia. It's kind of this golden rose-tinted look at this super idealistic 50s, 60s childhood in America that only really seems to exist in the movies. But yeah, it's a very nice thing to watch, apart from a couple of dark moments, but broadly it's just like this 90-minute hug. So yeah, it's a good one to lose yourself in, and that's no bad reason to stick this on, right? It's also worth watching because of the chemistry between Yelchin and Hopkins. Like, you buy their relationship totally, and the two of them together on screen are an absolute joy in whatever scene they're in. However, all that being said, I actually could have done with a little more of those two. For me, their friendship goes from being introduced to best buds, like, right away. And I just feel like it needed 5 or 10 minutes more of them getting to know each other to really earn the emotional payoff that we get a bit later on in the film without wanting to spoil anything. And normally, I am the biggest advocate of a 90-minute movie. And this movie is basically 90 minutes, but yeah, I just feel like we could have had a little more and it would have strengthened the overall piece. So what's the hook here? Well, as I said in the intro, it's loosely based on the novella Low Men in Yellow Coats, which is collected in the book Hearts in Atlantis. So we're watching the memories of a summer from the childhood of Bobby Garfield, who we meet as an adult, and he's feeling all nostalgic because he gets invited to the funeral of an old childhood friend, Sully. And he starts reminiscing about this summer in the 60s when an intriguing older guy moved into the apartment above his, a guy called Ted Brautigan. Now, Ted seemed to just be able to know things that he shouldn't necessarily be able to know, and he strikes up a friendship with Bobby, ends up paying him to read the papers for him and to keep his eye open for unusual occurrences on the street. And Bobby loves having this father figure. His own dad has died, and his mum is so wrapped up in her work and buying dresses for herself that he really likes having this adult friendship. And the rest of the movie is kind of lots of little episodes where we see this friendship develop, and we see some other stuff going on, these mysterious low men that Ted keeps talking about. What exactly is their motivations, and what exactly is going on with Ted's past as well? So, my biggest problem with this movie is it's so surface level. You can see exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to follow in the footsteps of Shawshank and Green Mile, and they're sprinkling in a heavy helping of Stand By Me influence as well. And they're trying to be deep, meaningful, nostalgic, emotional, all of those kind of things, but they just miss the mark wildly. they're so focused on creating this vibe that they forget to tell us an interesting story that is actually engaging and worth watching. And as a result, you've got this movie that looks great and is seeped in these golden tones that are like, hey, look at this, nostalgia, wasn't childhood amazing? But it's kind of also instantly forgettable. Like, I rewatched it last night at the time of recording. I'm struggling to remember exactly what happened. It's just a load of flimsy episodes that are just wrapped up in this warm coziness. And yeah, the vibe is there, but it's not that good a movie, unfortunately. It's a real shame. One thing it does have going for it though, as I've already hinted at, is the photography. It looks incredible. The stuff set in the 60s is so warm, golden and cozy, and even the stuff set in the winter, in the here and now, at the start and end of the film, still has a crispness and a coolness about it that is just nice to look at. So yeah, it's a good one for the eyes, certainly. Okay, let's jump into the cast, as there are a few folk worth mentioning. I'm going to start with the first person we see on screen, and that's David Morse as older Bobby. Now, by now, at this point in the timeline, he's a veteran of King adaptations because he's already been in the Langoliers and the Green Mile, and his performance here is very good, solid David Morse performance. He's very humble, very kind, very softly spoken, very engaging, very likeable. Yeah, good job. But more importantly, is that the start of a curly mullet we've got going there? If so, yes, grow that out, please. I thought Hope Davis as Bobby's mum Liz put in a very good turn as well, and I actually think some of the best direction for this movie comes around Liz's character. So we're introduced to her and she's putting herself in this position of, well, Bobby's father left us in a really tricky situation, lots of bills, and nobody really liked Bobby's father. He was a bit of a waste of space, and that meant that she couldn't buy Bobby the bike he wanted for his birthday, had to give him a library card for his birthday present instead because it was free. But at the same time, she's really like trying to focus on her own career, and she's always buying herself dresses and things. And the way her selfishness is slowly revealed over the course of the movie, I think is really effective. Because when you look back, it's quite obviously there, but we start to appreciate just how self-centered she is, as Bobby does throughout the film, and I think that was very well done.
Guess it must have cost a ton.
Don't you start on that, mister.
A quick mention for Alan Tudyk as the con man at the fair with all the cards shuffling around, mainly because, yes, that is Steve the Pirate from Dodgeball.
A boasty boy. He says he can win, but he's too afraid to back up his boast.
But Mika Burum as Carol Gerber I thought was excellent as well, and she's handled really well in terms of the direction and the overall finish of this film. She's clearly set up to be this heartthrob, but they also remember that she's 11, so she's not sexualized in any way. She's just this character in Bobby's life who he falls completely head over heels for. But it's very nicely done. So on to the big two then. Anthony Hopkins first as Ted Brautigan. He's great. He's very captivating, very intriguing, very kind, and there's definitely something darker lurking beneath the surface. However, I also feel like, nothing wrong with his performance, but I feel like he's being held back a bit, perhaps with the direction here. It's kind of emblematic of this whole film being really surface level. There's definitely more to Ted's character there, and I think there's definitely more that Anthony Hopkins could have given here, but I don't feel like he's being allowed the opportunity to do that. However, the standout for me is the late Anton Yelchin. This was his feature film debut, but you would never know it because his performance is absolutely excellent. He completely drives this film, and he's kind of different for a pre-teen character than you see in a lot of movies. Like, sure, he's got sass, he's got a bit of spunk, he's a bit feisty, he's funny, but he's also very vulnerable, and he does like fail in situations, and he does show weakness, and he just comes across as a bit more genuine as an 11-year-old than you may see other 11-year-olds in many movies. He's just really likeable, and like I said, he is the driving force of this movie, and it's an excellent, excellent performance. So lastly, before spoilers, I don't often use sites like Rotten Tomatoes to influence these lists and these collection of reasons, but actually I'm going to make an exception here because the Rotten Tomatoes consensus on Hearts in Atlantis kind of sums up my own feelings perfectly, so I'll read it to you. So it says, its consensus is that Hearts in Atlantis is well acted and beautiful to look at, but the movie is nothing more than a mood piece. And like, yeah, exactly. It's bang average. And that's kind of the worst thing to be for a movie. at least be at one end of the spectrum, because then, either way, whether you're really good or really bad, you're going to be remembered. If you're stuck in the middle and you're bang average, you're going to get forgotten, just like this one has.
You're a very strange person.
Tell no one.
Okay, we've reached the point where, from here on in, there may be some things I say or show you that might ruin a first time watch. So if you don't want to have any of that in your eyeballs, went weird there, didn't it? If you want to skip all of these things that might spoil a first time watch, then just find the timestamp of the intro below, skip ahead, and I will see you at the end. But otherwise, stick around because I've got a few more reasons for you to watch Hearts in Atlantis coming right up. Okay, so in terms of differences to the novella then, obviously this is based on a novella that is pretty important in the Dark Tower story. Ted Brautigan is an important Dark Tower character. The Low Men are fairly important, sort of minor characters in the Dark Tower lore, and there's just all of this Dark Tower weirdness that is in the novella that obviously didn't translate to the movie because they weren't making a Dark Tower movie. However, for me, that combination of the Dark Tower weirdness with the 60s nostalgia is what makes the novella so powerful. And without that, you've just got an attempt at making a nostalgia fluff piece. And that's why we get this bang average middling picture that is really nice to look at, but has very little substance behind it. So I understand why they didn't do the Dark Tower stuff, but by not doing it, that's their main failing. Kind of an odd story to choose, and not the best treatment of it either. So when it comes to favourite scenes to shout out, there are a couple I want to mention before bringing you on to my favourite one. The kiss between Bobby and Carol is very sweet, and the card shuffling scene manages to feel incredibly sinister, despite it just being a guy hustling cards. But the vibe there goes really dark, and I appreciated that.
It was just a lucky guess, mister.
Why don't you double your bet? That way everybody can go home happy.
However, my favourite scene is Bobby and Ted talking about Samuel Johnson farting. And not just because they're talking about farts, but mainly because it just captures their relationship brilliantly.
What's flatulence?
Yeah, kids always think farts are funny.
So when it comes to a favourite line, well, this movie is trying desperately to pack its script full of potential incredible killer lines, but all of them are bang average as per the rest of the movie, so nothing really sticks. So the line I'm going to pick is one where Ted references the library police, which is a good line in itself, but is also a nice nod to the library policeman, which is a story in 4 Past Midnight, of course.
It's true I've scamped my share of fines, and if there were library police, I'd be one of their 10 most wanted, but...
Now that little King reference brings me on to King connections in this one, so connections to other King adaptations and stuff like that. There aren't many. Mention David Morse, and this one came out on Castle Rock, which was home to a number of other Stephen King adaptations, and that is about it, or at least that's all I spotted. But if I missed anything, let me know in the comments. So lastly, again, this is a really nice movie to look at and has some great performances, but somehow ends up being totally forgettable and completely bang average. I can't quite put my finger on what it is. It's probably the fact that it's a strange story choice to pick, and the treatment of it is just totally too safe. It's just going for that nostalgia hit, and it seems to think that that alone will carry it on for decades afterwards as being this refined, amazing piece of cinema. It's not. Awkward.
Bobby, I'm dying here.
So there we go, 19 reasons for you to watch Hearts in Atlantis. Do let me know what you think of this one in the comments. For me, it's an unfortunate one. Distinctly average, pretty forgetful, even though it has some good performances and is beautiful to look at. But are you a fan? Let me know. I'd love to hear other viewpoints. Also, do check out the links in the description to my Stephen King quiz books, some of my fiction, my newsletter, the Constant Writers podcast, and whatever else I've stuck in there. There's loads of stuff for you to explore. Hit subscribe if you don't already subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any future videos. And if you do subscribe already, thank you so much. Maybe tell a friend and get more people involved. But more than anything, thank you for watching this video and thank you for getting this far. And do join me next time because, all being well, My next video will be taking you through the brand new book from Stephen King.